Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning, Saturday morning, up with the lark time, not to go for a walk in the park, but to jump onto YouTube and talk about Celtic. Chris Sutton's been doing that in his weekly column and he's been having a dig at some of the Celtic players. But before we dive into what Chris Sutton is saying, I think that we need to look at the Celtic team, and it does need a change this weekend. Obviously, with Dies and Maeda being out injured, it will mean that there will be a slight change to the playing staff. But I think the one that all Celtic fans will be looking at, the Kasper Schmeichel Sinisalo scenario. A lot of Celtic fans want Kasper dropped. After his heroics allegedly in international football, Brendan Rodgers will be in buoyant mood with his best friend and goalkeeper, Kasper, who he's had a long-term relationship with in football terms, and it'll be interesting to see just what happens. I think we all know what will happen. I think that it's going to be a case that Schmeichel will be kept in goals. And I think a few of us are starting to get fed up with the fact that Schmeichel isn't taking the blame for some of the mishaps that have happened at Celtic since the beginning of the season. I mean, some people will say, look, when it comes to it, we're in a good place in the league. We're only 2 points behind. Yes, the Champions League, it's in the past. Europe hasn't got off to the finest of starts. But we concentrate on the game this weekend. So who would you pick for the team this weekend? Would you put Kasper Schmeichel in goals? Would you put Sinisalo in goals? There's a lot of people that would like to see Sinisalo getting his chance. I think that will come at Hampden. He's been in goals for the cup games up to now. It'll be interesting to see whether Brendan Rodgers does change it up in the league. I don't think he will. Brendan Rodgers likes to keep a sort of continuity at the back. Good morning from South Africa, says Gerard. He does like to keep the same lineup at the back, but there's a bit of a change at the back this weekend because finally Alistair Johnston has been back in training, as has Austin Trusty. Do these players, although the lack of game time, and especially with the European game just around the corner, would you bring in Trusty and Alistair Johnston to get some game time this weekend? For me, I think that Trusty is a little bit further ahead than Alistair Johnston. I think that he definitely needs to get some match fitness. Should he just walk straight into the team and Liam Scales be dropped? It's an interesting one because, let's face it, Scales hasn't done too much wrong, has he? But then there's the Alistair Johnston question. Brendan Rodgers said yesterday that Alistair Johnston has been back in the pitch. They'll determine today whether he gets into the squad. And is it a case of taking it slowly but surely with Alistair Johnston just to make sure that because let's face it, we do need Alistair Johnston fit for the rest of the season. The two players that we have in deputising for him, let's face it, Ralston, Donovan. Ralston's a good player, but nowhere near the standard of Alistair Johnston. Young Donovan is a fantastic young player coming through, who when you look at it, is actually better than Ralston. But I think that we need to get these guys some game time. When you look at the other players in the squad, Inamura will be nowhere near it. And you've got to feel for Dane Murray. Dane Murray not getting the game time he thought he'd maybe get at Celtic this season. A lot of people were expecting him to be put out on loan to just get his game time. But he is in and around the first team. So it gives Brendan Rodgers a big headache at the back. Does he bring in the number 6 to get him some game time before the big game next week in the Europa? And does he drop Liam Scales out? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Because Cameron Carter-Vickers, let's face it, there's no one in the squad that can replace Cameron Carter-Vickers at the moment. Now, then it comes up to that side of the pitch where our number 36 and our number 63 play. Ironic that the two of them have the exact same numbers within their numbering of their shirts. Kieran Tierney, the Kieran Tierney question. He's obviously came back to Celtic under the boys coming home thing, and he's not been as fit as a lot of people had hoped. He did get pre-season under it, but he doesn't seem to be able to last 90 minutes. He did, just before the international break, play a game that lasted 90 minutes. But the form of Kieran Tierney is what a lot of Celtic fans are questioning. And let's face it, when you've got Marcelo, who is a little bit better player than Kieran Tierney on stats right now, and we know how the Celtic backroom staff like to look at stats. So who plays on that side of the pitch? Does Kieran Tierney walk straight back into the team this weekend? That fight, maybe he finds that fight that's been missing from his game. And then there's the midfield question. When you look at the players in midfield, Benji, does he start in the holding midfield role beside Callum McGregor? Does Brendan Rodgers change the formation? Does he go back to the formation that he tried during the summer, the 4-2-3-1 formation? Or does he just revert back to the 4-3-3? Like the shock that we've seen him do. And I think that's been the most disappointing thing for the season, for me so far, is that Brendan Rodgers tried out this 4-2-3-1 formation, and you're thinking, yes, we're going to go into it with a view of being a bit more defensive in European football, helping Kalmak out in the SPFL, having a player that can get forward. When you look at the runs and the goals that Benji scored, was sitting in that position with Kalmak, allowing him the sort of free rein. When we're in defence mode, he comes back and he sits with Kalmak. When Kalmak's getting man-marked, he comes in and sits, but it also gives him that opportunity to come running into the box late on and score goals. Something he hasn't done for a couple of weeks. Is KT done at a top level pro? I don't think so. But anyway, who do you play in the midfield? Do you go with Benji beside Callum McGregor? Because let's face it, Callum McGregor won't get dropped. Paulo Bernardo has been ill this week. He's been having a bit of man flu or whatever. Brendan Rodgers will say that we will see how Paulo is over the next 24 hours. I think that we can exclude Paulo Bernardo for that because he's not been getting a start. So I don't think that Paulo Bernardo would be one that would be at potential going to start this weekend. There's more chance of Rio Hatate being dropped. We don't know what his form's going to be like. Obviously, Rio Hatate did not go away with his international team. He was dropped. He was dropped on his forum for his international team. And that's a big worry going forward for Rio Hatate. Japan have qualified for the World Cup already. If he wants to go to the World Cup next summer, Rio Hatate needs to grow a set of cojones. Yes, his cojones need to drop out his sack and he needs to start manning up on the pitch. Because that's the only place that he can do it. That's the only place that he can convince the national team boss to get him back into that squad before the World Cup starts next summer. And I think that Rio Hatate is not only letting himself down and Celtic. You know, the start to the season that he's had, you're thinking, you know, Rio, you really need to... We know what you can do. Everyone knows that when Rio's in the mood, he's unplayable as a player. But then you've got Luke McCown, who totally mixes it up. Luke comes into the team and he's a bit more attacking minded. You know, playing against his old team this weekend, would that be the ideal opportunity to go, remember me, lads, and show the boss that, you know, we have another player in that midfield? Does Brendan Rodgers make a lot of changes this weekend with the Europa game in mind on Thursday? Does he bring in players to get in some game time, the first sort of 60 minutes of the game, which he usually does? I think you'll see a lot of changes around the 65 minutes to get Luke McCown on, Arne Engels if they're not picked. But who is your midfield three? Is it Callum McGregor? Is it Benji? And is it Rio Hatate? I think Brendan Rodgers does have his ones that he likes to play in that position. And to get the game done, I think the thinking of the manager is, let's get these players on at the start and get the goals in And he probably says that to the players. He's coming, if we get 2 or 3 goals up, I'll get taken off and rested. Maybe that's why the players aren't staying and playing and scoring goals, because they want to stay on for the full 90 minutes. Said no one ever at Celtic. So give me your midfield 3, because we all know that he's going to go 4-3-3, isn't he? I mean, it's in our wildest dreams that Brendan Rodgers would change formation. He'll meant him. But then there comes the front 3. Obviously with Jota out injured and no sign of him returning to training anytime soon. It is only October. Celtic don't expect him back until the turn of the year. So it's an interesting one going forward, is who do we play up front? Dyson Maeda is out of the equation. We all know who will go through the middle. It'll be Kells, as the manager calls him. Kells will be the man that will lead the front line, because that's the manager he knows, likes and trusts him, and he's a player that knows can score his goals. When it comes to the wingers, when you're looking at it, all we've got is Mikel Ange, Tenekti, James Forrest. That's it. And Yang. I don't really like including Yang, because it's like a man down. He's a fantastic guy, fantastic player at his own level, but he's not Celtic level. And do you know, Brendan Rodgers laughing last season or whenever it was about the fact that, yeah, his missus has been over, played some great football. That's people hiding. That's people hiding. There are too many Celtic players, and this is what Chris Sutton goes on about. There's too many Celtic players hiding on the pitch. And it's easy to do. You know, people getting themselves into positions where they're unpassable. I'm not saying that Yang's one of those players, because he's a player that you can pass to. The only problem that you have with Yang is he runs up the pitch and he tries to pass it into a space where there's nobody there, where he should be. And that's the issue that we have with the Yang. He's just not got it. It will be devastating if Dyson is out for any length of time. And I still think that Dyson could be working his ticket, but you can't say that about a professional player. And Celtic girl got a fright there. I thought you said Jota had a girlfriend. No comment on that situation with Jota. And then when you look at the potential for leading the line up front, we've got Johnny Kenny, Osmond, who didn't score for the B team, Shin Yamada. What is going on with Shin Yamada? Has anyone actually seen him in training? Arnie Engels is the biggest hider in the team by miles. Watch him. There is a lot of players with price tags and expectations. Do you know what I think that the real issue is with Celtic? And I think that we've taken the team to a level where there are, this is going to sound bad, but there's too many foreigners. You can get to a position within a team that, and I don't mean that in a way where it's, you know, it's bad for the foreigners. I mean, it's people that don't understand Celtic. Players that don't understand the pressures of playing for Celtic. Players that come in and think it's going to be an easy ride. Players that have come in and have watched Celtic from afar and thought, that Jota came to Celtic for 6 million, was sold for 25. It must be an easy league to fucking get a big... And I think that players have come in and not realised, fuck, it's hard work in Scottish football. Fuck, you've got to win every single game. Shit, if you don't play well, these fans are right on top of you. Even when you've won. It's unbelievable. And I think that there must be mindset issues going on in the background. Price tags have nothing to do with players, that's the clubs, said Joseph. Yeah, but does that... I'm not talking about the price tag of the players, I'm talking about the mindset. And there are too many people without that haven't never really heard of Celtic, let's face it, and don't have the oomph and the urge and the love. We give a lot of criticism. Look at James Forrest, for instance. Came through the system. James Forrest comes through the system. He gets slated, absolutely slated. Oh, he's done. He's past it. But he stayed at Celtic for years. You need more people like James Forrest in it. Tony Ralston, yeah, he's not the best, but he runs through a brick wall for Celtic. Young Donovan comes through the system, bleeds Celtic through and through, and he wants to do the best for it. Kieran Tierney, questionable. You can't question his love and his motivation for Celtic, that's for sure. But what you can do is you can question the level of his fitness. And going forward, is he the type of player that's had consistently so many injuries over his career? Has that taken the edge off him as a player? And then you look at a player that doesn't get a lot of game time in the midfield. Luke McCowan, who looks as if he's been at Celtic for years. And he's not. He's only been at Celtic a year and a couple of months. And when you look at what he brings to the team, he's not the best player. He's still got a little bit to progress. He knows that. He was honest at the start of the season. I love Luke McCowan for his honesty. A player that can sit down with the media team and say that there's 10 points. He said, this is his exact word, that there's 10 points I think I can improve on as a player this season. You're not going to get Arne Engels, Paulo Bernardo, Rio Hatate, or Dice Maeda going, yeah, I know I need to improve my game. Not a chance. Not a chance. And that's the issue. Foreign players come into Celtic and don't understand the demands of Celtic on a week-to-week basis. And we've got a team of players now that, yes, the turnover, and it comes down this, and I don't want to really talk about it. I don't want to be talking about the collective stuff and the board stuff today, but it does come down to the high turnover of players that we've had over the last couple of years, and we've lost that stability of players in the engine room that are Celtic through and through, that, you know, can motivate and push these players and elevate these new players up. Baz, that's because he knows the demands of Celtic. Yeah, I think a lot of them are surprised with the demands of the club and the fans. I think so, definitely. I'm expecting Kells to be ready, now up to speed. Hopefully goals, we want to see him getting into everything, even from the touchline. Gavboy, I think you're right with that one. I think that, Kells is, it's looking like he is the manager's preferred striker now. Shin Yamada's not going to get him out of the team. Johnny Kenny, he's your backup striker all day long. Brings something a little bit different. Shin Yamada, he's bound to be thinking, what do I need to do what do I need to do to get into the team? Well, we've not seen enough Shin Yamada. When we have seen him on the pitch, the brief appearances that he's had, I'm not overly. He's not definitely 100% nowhere near as Kyogo Furuhashi was. Nowhere near. Could he be? I don't know. But is it a case that a lot of these players have been brought in and advised to go to Celtic because they'll get the move? Brendan's running down the clock. It'll be a long season for him. Mo, come on, we all know that the manager's away at the end of the season. I think that can we do a Brendan Rodgers here? Can we do a Chris Sutton? Can we draw a line in the sand? Because I think, let's go back to the first interview of the season, the very first interview of this season, first game of the season. Brendan Rodgers said there's no talks going to take place going forward. There's no contract talk on the table. We're miles apart, and that's it. That's it. Can we draw a line under the sand? I think it is widely expected by the Celtic fan base now that Brendan Rodgers will leave at the end of the season. It's getting widely reported by media and speculative journalism saying, oh, Brendan Rodgers is going to go here, Brendan Rodgers. Let's just leave that to the end of the season. We need to focus on the football now. Do you know, the board stuff and everything else, let's just focus on the football. Because if we lose focus on the football, and that rubs off onto the pitch, Well, who's then to blame? You're going to blame the manager, you're going to blame the players, but ultimately, collectively, we've got a little bit to blame as well, putting excessive pressure on them. Anyway, why would Rodgers stay with the current custodians of the club? He always said he would do his 3 years. Yes, and I've said he would do his 3 years. I never thought that Brendan would stay longer than 3. I always thought he would stay the 3. He would get his treble, the elusive treble that he's after. And I think that this is the perfect year for him to go, do you know what? Ange Postecoglou's done it. Won a treble and walked away. Let Brendan Rodgers have his treble this season. Let's get behind them and have a successful season. Europe will take care of itself. Do you know, Brendan Rodgers is now saying, and we've seen the interview yesterday, yes, I've got to concentrate on the players that are here. When you look at the players that are way out on loan, Odom Owens to come back in December from Los Angeles. Adam Montgomery's out on loan, Stephen Welsh's out on loan, Rocky's out on loan, Palmer's out on loan. We'll get rid of Palmer altogether. It'll be interesting to see if Rocky can come back to Celtic. He is on an option to buy, isn't he? But Stephen Welsh, he's not on an option to buy. Or is he? I'm not too sure. But I think his time's done at Celtic as well. But anyway, Adam Montgomery, he's one for the future. At Livingston, we'll see how that works out. And Odom Ohm, will he ever get back into the Celtic midfield? Because let's face it, I mean, I don't think that Odom Ohm is the answer to that midfield, because come this summer, which is a long way off, there's going to be massive change. If you think that this summer was all about change, wait till next summer. Then it's a long way off, so let's just forget about it. Rodgers will leave for sure, the board know it, so they should be looking right now for his replacement, waiting to go out in the summer without it. Don't listen to the media. Brendan will be here after season ends, says Eddie. He's convinced that Brendan will still be here. I think if Brendan is still here, it's because he's wanting one more. Put it this way, when Brendan leaves Celtic, he will be going to a club that will not be in and around qualification for the Champions League. If Brendan does stay one more season, which there is the potential, it's because he wants that final crack at the whip at the Champions League. Because he knows when he leaves Celtic, he's going to be going to a mid-table club in England. He'll go to a mid-table club in Spain. The chances of him getting Champions League football, well, there's probably more chance of him going to a team in Spain and getting Champions League football with them, since they get a good couple of teams into the Champions League as well. So anyway, Keith Robertson says any teams out there who would take Ange back? Not a chance. No, I'm not even going to do a poll with that, because I just think that Ange wouldn't come back. Ange has said, I mean, forget that ship. That has completely sailed. Anyway, that is your Celtic news this morning. If you're just catching up, give me your team in the comment section. I will be live at 4:30 this afternoon, where we will get the final results as they come in, and see what difference it has made to the table. Because let's face it, there is one team that's playing this afternoon that could extend their lead at the top of the table. And on that note, have an absolutely fantastic day, especially you, because if you're still hanging around, you're like my favourite person for still being here and subscribe to the channel. Just saying.